Okhai Akhigbe joins us now. He's a security consultant. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Well, from what we're seeing now, is there anything, I didn't ask Alaji that may be considered as some sort of fresh development? Because, I mean, if the Air Chief Marshal says that they may soon run out of suicide bombers, the people have rejected them in Kano, they're attacking civilians, are there signs of frustration? What do you deduce from that?
Let me just clarify. Are you asking if I agree with that opinion?
No, if it looks as though we're making a headway here, given the statements or the comments which he has made.
I think it's going to be difficult to assess right now because what we're seeing, as far as I'm concerned, is a greater spread of activity. And we don't know if they're going to continue to change their tactics. For someone to say they're running out of suicide bombers, I don't know.
Does that presume or presuppose that some sort of analysis is being done or some sort of study is being done for him to come up with those statements?
Well, I would assume so. But from my training, what I understand about such groups is that they continue to recruit. I've continued to insist that what we're dealing with here is an ideological problem. And these groups are experts in recruiting people. And if you consider the economic situation in Nigeria, you have a lot of people you can recruit, a lot of people that can be recruited from the streets. So it's just going to be difficult to say right now.
From the story that Alhaji told us here, it seems very complex. But at the same time, it seems like the solutions are not far-fetched in the sense that, they say Kano was warned about these impending attacks. We also hear that there were mediators, begging them to not do the attacks. That the police had made some progress in the sense that they had caught some of their members, and the sect was threatening fire and brimstone because of their sects that were being held in detention. And yet there were people. We keep saying that the group is a faceless group. Yet it seems that people know who these people are. How come is it that we cannot piece the links together, put together the pieces of the puzzle?
It's definitely very complex. I think that even some of the members of the groups, of this particular group, might not even actually understand the driving ideology. And that's why I've said we need to continue to understand what the focus is. We've been told, Boko Haram, what does that mean? Western education is forbidden. Is that the real ideology? From some of the people that have been arrested, if we continue to interview them, we might start to have an idea of what's the driving force. There'll definitely be basic economic issues, people that get stipends to go out there and just unleash mayhem. So we're going to have to continue to review this. I'm sure that's been done constantly, but then we need to be able to counter the recruitment, and I keep insisting that it's going to be a people drive. In as much as we have the security agencies out there on the streets, we just need to be able to mobilize people. Now, the way these groups operate is based on fear. What they want to do always is to perpetuate fear. They're very successful at doing that. As far as they can get people to panic and a pandemonium to break loose, then they win. So what we have to start to do is to show that we will not be afraid. People will die, and that's the reality. There will be more explosions. We don't know how many. I don't know how many suicide bombers there are. But the thing is, if they start to understand that we will stand our ground for the freedoms that we believe in, we want to have that freedom to worship, whether it's in a church or a mosque. If we have to put sandbags outside the churches and the mosques, then so be it. So we have to fight the psychological battle as well as that physical battle. And that's what I think.
You see us stepping up to it?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, people have said so much about the government. I think the government is even getting fed up, because we keep criticizing the government. So some of us have decided that we will take an initiative. We're trying to put together a group. It's called Citizens United. And what we intend to do is to start to deploy on social media. We want to start to bring people together, to mobilize people. This is a great chance for us to fight for our country. We were given independence, but now we have to prove that we believe in Nigeria. And so we will be deploying. We will use the resources available to us. We might not have all the resources, but if we can get people to come on board and start to share information, start to stand up for what we believe, then we might be able to do something.
You know, I think the last time you came here, you also talked about the psychological battle, and it makes it very, very hard for us to really overcome just with a wave of the hand. But the way it's been going now, Chamberlain was trying to ask, the way, and you look at the statement from the government, we'll still have to go back to the government, because in other crimes, which you have also experienced, well, the government say, we will not be deterred. You get to see a minimal reduction in any of those carnages from the bad guys. But how do you make up your mind to join in this whole fight when it amounts to every time you get to hear statements, you see worse case scenarios from the same sect group that the government has said they will curtail their excesses?
Well, there are constraints. I mean, security agencies have the constraints. But I just think that we do need to take in the initiative so that the government itself will pull their socks up, because I've heard so many times people asking citizens to come forward, share information and all of that. And that's good, yes, intelligence is at the core of this fight. But come on, let's be real. How many people at this point are going to be able to walk up to a police station, a police officer, and then give that information? Over the years, this confidence hasn't been built up. This is a great time to do that. There are things that we just have to do away with. And I'll keep saying this. This is a problem. We have a group that wants to set us apart. But we can actually make this group keep us together. But then we have to deal with so many other issues at the same time. We have the average policeman on the street. This is a great time to deal away with the 20 naira. Step up to responsibility. We do have to builds that confidence in the security agencies and the public to work together.
Is it not interesting? I mean, if you look at what happened in Canada, the fact that the police force was, and all the security agencies, the SSS as well, also came under attack. The passport office also came under attack. But the police suffered the heaviest number of casualties, in the sense that, you know, the entire structure, even the AIJ command center that overlooks Jigawa and I think one other state, you know, came under attack. Assuming you're a citizen and you had information concerning that and you're going to go and give it to the police, what confidence, I mean, yes, you already spoke about confidence, but what confidence will be there to go to the same police you feel could have been infiltrated? Because right now people are saying that attack doesn't look like it was carried out strictly by outsiders. It looks like there were people inside helping them as well.
Well, that's part of the concern. I think I did a write-up not too long ago for this day, and I tried to distill, 10 principles of fighting terrorism. And if I remember correctly, point number 9 is there will be fifth columnists, there will be sympathizers, and it's part of the problem that we're going to have to deal with. Now, we're still going to be faced with the choice. What do we do? What's the right thing to do? To make a report or to be quiet? And silence is going to be very dangerous, because we can all be victims, directly or indirectly.
To make a report to whom is the question?
Well, you're going to have to think of who you make the report to, but then the fact is that you cannot keep quiet.
Isn't that why we've been talking about some kind of toll-free lines? And, when you call that toll-free line, a dedicated line, no one sees you going into the police station or walking out of the police station to say, okay, Mr. Akhigbe was the one who gave the police this form of information. So you're safe in the comfort of your home while you pass such information. But as it is now, we had on that all through last year, and this is 2012. Isn't this an indication that a simple thing as a 3-digit number for us as a nation, for anyone to call and we still haven't done that we're not serious?
It's a little bit more complicated than that, because I've served on a counter-terrorist task force in the past. And I'll tell you one thing that we experienced, which was really terrible. People used the opportunity of such lines to settle scores and sent us on wild goose chases. Somebody will have an argument with their neighbor, and then they call us up, and then they say this person is involved in bombing, and we're using resources to arrest innocent people, time to investigate those cases, and unfortunately a lot of innocent people suffer loss. So we cannot do away with toll-free numbers. Yes, that's one way, but then you don't know who's at the other side of the line. Maybe it's the person that you're searching for that's going to be talking to you and sending you on a wild goose chase. So at the end of the day, the face-to-face is what we cannot do. It's more reliable. It's more reliable. I will still emphasize we're going to have to build up this confidence. Look, we're looking for the short way of dealing with this thing. We want to wish this thing away in 30 days. It will not happen.
Okay, but look at this scenario, predicating it on what you said, however hypothetical. The headlines you see today, if that is anything to go by, where they say that's Boko Haram now, that some northern governors are backing them financially, because in that same report it says they actually pay them as much as 10 million naira monthly to stay away from their states. Some say they like the military precision. And so if they've got that kind of backing, hypothetically again, I say that cautiously, how do you face that if you're trying to build from grassroots? You need some sort of organization, you need some sort of structure, you need to work with institutions. What about the police force? What about those agencies? How will they readily accept to work with this group that you want to build from grassroots?
Well, on the previous show we talked about building capacity. And building capacity, we're not going to restrict that to the police force or even the armed forces. It's just going to have to spread across the board. Getting people to understand what the threat is. Because I don't think we're looking deeply into the threat enough to be able to assess it in terms of its diversity, its dimension, because sometimes it's an ever-changing threat. You sometimes cannot nail it down to one place. Some of these guys probably started out as thugs without an ideology, and they got paid stipends to probably beat people up, intimidate people. So they were out there for the taking. Now, somewhere along the line, somebody has come and probably hijacked them and trained them and sent them forth to do what they're doing now. So dismantling that is going to take a little while.
They say millions and people. If we could take a look at what Professor Shrenka said yesterday about building this compact, I think we anchored it on that last protest about fuel subsidy. Can one latch onto that kind of expectation from people positively, also saying, well, since that awareness is there, if Nigerians were able to pull together that way, there could also be some sort of hope in the silver lining?
Well, that's my thinking exactly, and that's what I'm saying. We need to also look at the people coming together, mobilizing the people. I do think that the government also needs to show a lot more concern and make a lot more sacrifice, in terms of providing more resources, and if they can cut back on their own expenditure as well, that gives us more money to spend on the police force, on people, because the fact is people don't have jobs, people are poor, they're not educated. You pointed that out in the last show. We cannot divorce the two. You're dealing with security, you have to handle the economic issues as well, because the economic issue is a very serious issue. So we just have to deal with both of them.
But at the moment now, from what we've seen, because again, the statement of the Air Chief Marshal, could he have said that because he thinks that perhaps sooner rather than later, when people get frustrated, if you keep taking people out, and maybe you have a lot more families who suffer some sort of casualty or the other, they in turn will turn against you and say, no, we can't stand for this anymore because we wear the shoe, we know where it pinches. Could it be that perhaps he says that having that scenario in his sight?
Let me clarify again. Are you talking in reference to suicide bombers?
Yes. And the fact that people can actually come together using that as a common ground.
You see, the thing is, it's understanding what message the people on the streets are getting. Who are they seeing as the enemy? Do you understand? Because sometimes it's very difficult to see it from their perspective, from someone that stays in a small shanty, and he's looking for a reason to blame someone, and somebody's coming and saying, this is the cause of your problem. These people are the cause of your problem, and he starts to believe it. So the process of radicalization it's a lengthy process. So he gets to that point that he actually believes that you are the cause of his problem, and he has to do away with you. There are different types of terrorism, and when you talk about suicide terrorism, that is, call it top of the range. It's the most difficult to deal with.
but again, I was thinking that who is not a casualty here? Everyone has had one form of taste or the other. The SSS, the police, the army, and members of the public on a daily basis. Now, if you say it's an all thing, it's a we thing, it's a we affair, based on the community effort, everyone is ready. But again, what can we the people specifically do? If you say we just cannot wake up someday and wish this away, we still have to deal with it for some time to come. Readily knowing full well what the people have, just their phones and some other maybe a brain up there, what can they do with it?
We can prepare. We can train first responders. We can train people in first aid, because this is going to keep happening. I mean, when a bomb goes off, people need first aid. Very few of our people are trained in first aid, and that makes all the difference who stays alive and who dies. So we can train people. We can train our coppers. We can do that in secondary school, because we don't know how long this is going to go on. If it ends in 30 days, I'm sure we'll all be glad. But let's prepare for the worst. Then we can also kind of take care of each other. We used to be known as a people that took care of their brothers. You know, we can take care of each other by monitoring our streets, monitoring the person next door. We need to show more interest, and not just in the crisis areas now, because you know there's a danger of complacency in areas where you have relative peace. You know, and these attacks are looking far away.
Sorry, how easy it is for us to look inwards, for instance, within the police and other agencies, to see if there are moles? Because if we have to go with what Alhaji Mahmoud Othman did say, how did they know they were taking the suspect to his house to do a search?
Well, you know, I think from my experience, every security agency has some type of internal department that regularly establishes the integrity of groups. When I was in the army, that was part of the job that we had in the intelligence. It consisted, it wasn't an easy job and a nice job at all, but that was part of what we did to ensure that people were loyal and they weren't moles and they weren't compromised. So these departments exist, but then it's ensuring that they do their jobs. Because there will be people that will be sympathizers.
I know you heard people say, well, let's move in, let's show force, you know, as they say. Tell us about the role of force in this entire scenario, because you talked about this being a long haul. Radicalism, terrorism, it's different. What role does force play in this?
Okay. 10 rules of fighting terrorism. I go back to it. Probably rule number 3. Limited use of the military. It's good to have the military on standby working with the police, but you have to be very careful, because the military has lethal force. It has to be deployed wisely, or else there will be casualties. Some of those casualties will result in other people being radicalized. We told you so. These are the enemy. Now do you believe us? You understand what I'm saying? And then more people get recruited. So it has to be an intelligent application of force, very intelligent. That's difficult, and that's why we talk about training people into specific roles. Amazingly, we have trained quite a number of people in counterterrorism over the years. I know that people have been posted out to different units. They haven't maybe even actually operated in some of those counterterrorist units. Some have left service. Search out some of these people, bring them back. They have experience, they have knowledge, and utilize them.
Would you say now that we know who we have a face for Boko Haram, or faces for Boko Haram, are there still a faceless group?
I think we have some faces, but maybe it's going to be difficult to piece together right now the complete picture of Boko Haram. I mean, looking back at Al Qaeda, for instance, it took a while to be able to understand how it worked and who the people, the various actors were. And the reason for this is that, you know, from Al Qaeda, a lot of terrorist groups have understood how to operate as networks and keep certain parts anonymous, and then you have a face. So it's difficult sometimes to get that complete face.